Welcome, everybody, to the NLC. We are in day 2, week 1, and we are underway and ready to get into a whole new set of matches because we've got a lot of teams that we haven't yet seen on the stage, and we're ready to dive in to how these teams are going to perform. Just to welcome you back to the analyst desk, I'm Scoundrel, and I am joined by Troublelink, Gulborg, and our weekly guest Veteran, who is joining us here as a special guest for the broadcast. Now, guys, we had a lot of exciting games yesterday, but I would say realistically, we didn't see anything unexpected, and I think that's just sort of to get your sort of opinions on the matches. I'll start with you, Veteran. I feel like everything kind of went the way that we assumed it was going to go.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially in opening game Godsend versus BTXL, that was absolutely what we would have expected from a more veteran team versus like a much newer team. Barrage also had taken their entire roster as a new set versus Fnatic Rising, who literally the absolute opposite of that, not a single change, and the only team that hadn't changed anything coming in. And both seemed very, very one-sided in very significant manners. However, we did see both times, blood was drawn. We saw the mid laner of Barrage, Hadron, actually be able to make some form of comeback plays and even get a solo kill on the legendary Magi Felix from Fnatic Rising. And we saw Champion on the side of Godsend be able to make picks, not just himself, but in a very specific 0-3-2 formation that we normally associate with top LEC teams like Fnatic, that did put BTXL on their toes despite how heavily they snowballed in the early game. Right here, you can actually see Hadron trying to take the fight to Fnatic as well. So it's not completely one-sided, though the leads were very, very significant. You did see brief glimpses of hope from teams, and then obviously it goes into a bit of overconfidence, as you can see on your screen right now. But there is hope for them. And overall, like you're saying, the results speak for themselves. There's not really anything that we weren't really expecting yesterday. There was quite clearly David versus Goliath both times, but there's hope for David yet.
Yeah, and obviously XL opened up the day, Veteran, with their win, and that was pretty much just bot difference, it felt like.
Yeah, it really was, and that would have been the story of the game if it wasn't for Champion making those picks later on. But the amount that they snowballed with Ezreal Karma in this lane off of their initial bounce back was absolutely insane. You can even contrast this Ezreal Karma with the more amateur Ezreal Karmas that we saw coming afterwards. We even saw in the very next game Ezreal Karma being brought out by a team with nowhere near as veterancy as them. They leashed bot lane level 1, and even though it's the same matchup, you could see how dramatically it changed from the immense snowball that we saw game 1 there.
Well, obviously, we've seen the academy teams in action there with Fnatic and XL, but Trouble, we had some Nordic teams manage to get their names on the board, with Nordavind picking up a win. Their mid laner Ericsson we interviewed afterwards as well. How did they do in their game?
And even though with Nordavind coming in, and they did seem to outclass their opponents individually yesterday in this game that we're seeing right now. A win is always a win. You can take that, you can improve from that, but they did leave a couple of question marks behind. What is the playstyle of Nordavind? Where do they play towards, and where do they want to focus? And how does the team cohesion look after this? Because it did look a little bit of sparse. At moments they weren't coherent enough, but at the start of the tournament, when you have that much individual talent stacked into one team, you can only go further from there. You can only grow. It's the start of the tournament. It's only one game, and you can progress. On the other side, for Singularity, I just really had high expectations, especially knowing how Vrao plays his lane, how aggressive he can go. He will die for these kills. I'm waiting to see that Scooter and Vrao sort of duo excel further, because they did seem, like I said before, to get a little bit outclassed individually.
Yeah, I think the kind of point we talked about with Singularity is they look like good individual players, but the cohesion just isn't there. The ability to play together just not quite on the board yet. And actually, Gulborg, it wouldn't be the opening of show if I didn't ask you about how Riddle played. They got a win yesterday. Talk to me about their game.
Well, obviously coming into this game, I had a lot of expectations, not only because it's a full-blown Danish roster, but also a lot of expectations to the jungler Maxi. If you didn't know Maxi, he came back in 2018 with his success in the EU Masters. Success. It was the 2nd place. But after that, he flew all the way over to North America, stayed a year in FireQuest Academy, and nothing really happened. That's why I'm so excited to see him back here and actually see him do so well as we saw him do yesterday. So Maxi was just able to take over the whole game himself in the early game with his Graves, and I feel like that's a threat to every team out there. A statement game. We do have replays coming up. As you can see already in the beginning of the day, vertical jungling, backing into a mid lane gank, or bot lane gank rather, sorry. And after his lead, they were just able to snowball the solo laners here. Let's just talk about Doxy, let's talk about Senkox. These guys have something to prove too, because they are big names and they showed up yesterday. Unfortunately, I'm yet to see Ray and Vendelbo show up the way as their teammates here. I felt like they had a lot of sloppy mistakes. The 1v1s or 2v2 came to a lot closer than I wanted them to be. And I'm missing some more coherent style and some more synergy with the team, because they did seem like they lacked something yesterday.
Sure, I definitely felt like watching that game was the Maxi show from start to finish. The guy just plowed through on the Graves. But, you know, I think that was yesterday's games. We're going to see some of these teams in action today. Singularity, Godsent, and Nordavind will all be playing, as well as Ents as well. But let's have a look at those games today, because we can talk about what's going to be coming your way. We have, to start things off, I think everybody very expectantly wants to see how Munster Rugby Gaming perform. They're going up against MNM to kick things off. Then actually a really interesting match, which I know our analysts are really hyped about, is going to be Dusty versus Tricked. We're going to have Ents versus Nordavind in the third game, and then Singularity versus Godsent, which I also think will be very telling as a game. I think we're going to have some closer affairs today. And I think I'm just going to toss this over to you guys to talk about some matches that you're specifically hyped about. I'll start with you, Trouble. Any of these matches that you really want the viewers to keep an eye on?
I know the two that contains either Ents or Godsent. I know that a lot of people have them towards the bottom of the pack. They're the underdogs coming in here, but I feel that if they can pick up a win, it will be against these opponents. Nordavind, they did show some lack of coherence that we talked about earlier, so they can be beaten if you play them right, of course. And the same with Ents. Ents, they did show, you know, their spirit. They show that if they're gonna go down, they're gonna go down with a bang, and it can work against teams more towards the middle of the pack.
And what about you, Gulborg? Any of those games? I know, obviously, a lot of teams that you've got very close to your heart playing today, but any ones that you want the viewers to keep an eye on today?
So just basically for the viewer experience, I'd definitely go for Munster Rugby Gaming versus MNM. I mean, we got Max Law back in the game, and we've heard a lot about talks about him with interviews too, how he used to have this balance with the teams, how he's now way more focused on being individually happy as well. And I'm curious to see how this balance going to work out on a roster like Munster Rugby Gaming, because let's be real, he got a lot of flack from the community after his split was done with Misfits and just went underground. And I'm extremely excited to see this sort of caliber back in a league like NLC. And then also, I'm extremely excited to see if MNM is going to be capable of standing against such a high caliber player. We will be diving into the matchup when we are talking about the game later, but the 2v2 in the mid lane and the bot lane as well, I'm extremely hyped to see how they're going to fare out against each other.
I don't think I need to ask Veteran which game he's excited about, but Veteran, obviously, I'm thinking you're talking about the Dusty versus Tricked matchup.
Yes.
Why should we be excited about that?
Because both teams are triple threat teams with very underrated players, all three of which can play a carry role in all three lanes, and two junglers that are very willing to facilitate them in that regard in very aggressive manners as well. I almost have more questions about how these teams will shape up in terms of identity than I do with any other team, because there's just so many options open for them. And I think with the big names like Munster Rugby Gaming and the Academy teams, these two teams have kind of been swept under the rug a bit, but I am actually super excited to see how they'll match up and the identity that they'll start forming for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people have been hyped about Tricked especially, so I'm very much looking forward to that team.
I'm a Dusty man. Oh,
sorry, Dusty. Yeah, Dusty. Sorry, I literally my brain got the wrong way around. Let's take a look at the standings though, because obviously we had some games yesterday. It'll be good to refresh about where all the teams are right now. Group A, you can see Riddle, Nordavind, and BTXL all taking a win in their opening games here with Godsent, Ents, and Team Singularity all down at 0-1. If we then move over to Division B, we can have a look at the standings over there, and it will be no surprise, as we only had 4 games yesterday, that Fnatic Rising is the only team on the board, with Barrage losing their first game there. But obviously MNM, Tricked, Dusty, and Munster Rugby will all be playing today, so we'll have a bit more of an indication about how these groups are going to shape up. Now, we are going to go to a short break, but before we go, I've got to say a big thanks to Corsair, and I'm gonna try and get this right. El Giganten. I might have to ask Gulborg to pronounce it.
It was good enough. It was good enough.
It was good enough. Thank you to Corsair and El Giganten for being part of the NLC. They have been big sponsors and big sort of supporters of this competition, so thank you so much to them. We'll see you very shortly after a quick break, and we'll dive into our first game of the day, MNM versus Munster Rugby Gaming.
Am I wasting time? 'Cause I'm already gone. So long, can you stay the night? 'Cause you're the thing I want. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out, but even with no makeup you still stand out. 'Cause no one makes me feel the way you do now. Like you do now. The way that you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discovered underneath last night's covers. Everything came so easy. It's electricity. Electricity. Whoa. It's electricity. Electricity. It's electricity. When it's late at night, I feel you on my skin. My skin. You're all that's on my mind. It's finally sinking in. You're it. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out, but even with no makeup you still stand out. 'Cause no one makes me feel the way you do now. Like you do now. The way that you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discovered underneath last night's covers. Everything came so easy. It's electricity. Electricity. It's electricity. Electricity. It's electricity. The way that you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discovered underneath last night's cover. Everything came so easy. It's electricity. Electricity. It's electricity. You move your body. Electricity. You move your body. It's electricity.
We fall so hard to tend the gardens for strong and lonely hearts. The roofs are falling under the boughs left in the summer, striving to find places for cover. We can't abide all. Breaking your backs and falling on the stone. Out on my own.
Welcome back to the NLC, and we are about to dive into our first game, Munster Rugby Gaming versus MNM. And there's a lot to unpack with these two teams. Specifically, we haven't really seen Munster Rugby Gaming. It's difficult to assess what they're going to be like, but they're obviously packing some big ticket names. You know, Maxlaw making his return to that competitive scene. But let's start with the bot lane here, Trouble, because The mid lane rather, the 2v2 mid. That's what I'm really interested in here. Speaking of Maxlaw specifically, talk to me about that.
So it pretty much is going to be a bloodbath no matter what these two teams are going to do. They have these POW sort of champions coming in, like there's some sort of Annies I've heard somewhere in the mid lane lurking around. But yeah, on the one side you have Maxlaw and Sebex, and on the other side you have Aesthetic and Monk. Now both of these junglers fit so much into this meta. The Nidalee, the Graves. Aesthetic is generally so aggressive. He loves to play that aggressive game. He likes to 1v1 you. He likes to play in your face. So I do feel that sort of playstyle does suit him, and he's not afraid to pick up his favorite Kindred and bring it out into the game. Now, on the other side, you do have Hiva, who wants to break the 2v2. Now, this is a guy who's very used to roaming towards mid lane, getting the advantages for his team, staying out of that bot lane and try to roam together with his jungler, which in my opinion is gonna put Kalhira on his toes this game.
Yeah, and speaking of Kalhira, he's a guy that I hold very dear, good friend of mine, former teammate. But honestly, he's going to be at his toes, and he's going to be tested, as Trouble does mention. Hiva will be out roaming on the map, as we have seen him do multiple times. So it is up to Kalhira to keep him pinned down in this 2v2 bot side lane. He does have some tool in his toolbox here to help him out. His most fun champion is Thresh, so maybe that's going to have to be banned out against him from Munster Rugby Gaming too. He's also extremely fond of the playmaking champions like Rakan, and he also has a Bard ready, not only a temporary elo champ, but also one he can bring out in this competitive setting. It's his job to keep Hiva pinned down in this 2v2 bot lane, so he won't be able to come out on the map and actually have an influence on his teammate. Now, the thing is, though, we can expect Munster Rugby Gaming to transition their 2v2 mid lane down to a 2v2 in the bot side of the map, and this is where it starts to become tricky for them, because Munster Rugby Gaming, as far as I've heard, have a huge priority on Unforgiven, actually. So it's going to be interesting to see how MNM will deal with this pressure, both coming out from the 2v2 in mid and the availability for the mid lane to roam down in the bot side.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to see how much he ends up influencing this game. I think he's head and shoulders above a lot of supports in the ERLs in general. I think he is an LEC ready player. But the idea that even it might come down to the 2v2 roaming towards bot side, even if MNM are able to pull out the 2v2 victory in mid, I do very frequently just see the 2v2 and bot side being decided before that can even be a fact. And we even saw that in early games yesterday, the 2v2 bot side being decided even as early as the first wave. And this is a fact we talk about. But best case scenario for MNM, they're able to stem the tide on bot. Monk's able to get on something he's really comfortable on, like the Tristana, like the Azir, though he does seem to be playing everything on his OPGG right now. And yeah, you've heard about the Annie coming out from Sebex, but it is very heavy skirmish-based picks that Sebex normally plays. All of these Polish mid laners are very strong on these skirmish-heavy mage champions. So when it comes to these groupings, you can expect Sebex to bring out something, even if a bit unorthodox, that will benefit him in those instances. And Maxlaw has more experience at this kind of map play than anyone. Maxlaw's issues have always been around mid to late game engages, but Hiva is very, very strong on those particular moments. Some of the finest moments he had in the LEC were down to that. I'm very excited overall, honestly, to see how these two teams clash, though I do ultimately fall on the side of Munster Rugby Gaming. They've kind of been there, done that, and there are so many changes, like with Monk's role swap, not just the roster itself, that these guys, that MNM need to adapt to. If they do end up adapting to them, it will probably be later on in the split rather than right now.
Yeah, I think Munster Rugby Gaming is one of the teams that outside of Fnatic and XL, most viewers are going to be looking at thinking, yeah, I can just even see from the individual names that we're expecting a powerhouse team here. Actually, I have a question that I'm wondering you guys can kind of talk about for me, because it's been a while since we've seen Maxlaw in competitive play, okay? He's a jungler that I think had a lot of promise back when he was in the LEC level. He was obviously someone that kind of became a European hero maybe like 2 or 3 years ago when I think it was the Misfits Worlds run that they made. He kind of made his name by duoing with Alfari and being the top lane camper that got Alfari ahead, and that's kind of what I think accelerated his early game ERL play. But what is Maxlaw's style as a jungler, and how does that fit where we are in the current meta? Because we've had a lot of focus on junglers, especially yesterday. We talked a lot about them. What does Maxlaw slot into terms of jungle power rankings in this particular league, and how his style suits up to this meta?
I think that with the experience that Maxwell has and with his fundamental understanding of pathing, I think that he is a high tier one, but I wouldn't be surprised if a player like Maxi was able to get one over on him. And some of the fundamental aspects that made Maxwell really good actually also made Aesthetic really good back in the day as well. We kind of have two junglers that were in their prime a few years ago, and both of them had a strong fundamental understanding of the jungle over what most players had at the time. The problem is that junglers accelerated so far that those fundamentals are actually very, very commonly understood, and mechanics become a much larger differentiating factor between these junglers. Maxwell was a guy who was always willing to shadow waves on one side before he would make an acceleration play on the other. Alfari could always ensure his wave was safe before Maxwell went and played around Ignar. I would characterize him playing much more around bot on that team in Season 7, for example. But the understanding that he has there has now been demonstrated by like every rookie jungler that entered in Spring Split in the LEC, for example, and has been demonstrated by a lot more in the RLs as well, including Dan, including Maxi. I think what will differentiate Maxwell, though, is he will be much more confident in a lot more setups than these guys will. Like, Maxwell's lost more games than these guys have ever played, right? And he has much more experience than them. So while they both might have parity on fundamental understanding, and maybe players like Maxi will prove to have better mechanics than him, I think Maxwell will make these map-based decisions faster than them and be much more decisive about them because of his sheer volume of experience. And that's what you would expect from a veteran player like Maxwell, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a very short break. When we're back, we'll dive into Champion Select for our first game, Munster Rugby Gaming versus MNM. See you soon.
future blind. Running to the future blind. Next to me, nothing really matters. My midnight sun, taking out the darkness. And it's only just begun. And it's only just begun. Tell me all your dreams and put them on your sleeve.
All right, guys, we are moments away from diving into Champion Select between Munster Rugby Gaming and MNM. I think I'm going to open up the field now, given what we know about these two teams. So we're actually already into pick and ban, so I'm not even going to open that question up. We have a TF ban and a Varus ban straight off the bat here. TF instantly, Monk getting hard targeted by Munster Rugby
have
Gaming.
looked at Monk's OPGG, okay? Munster Rugby Gaming, don't get too cocky here, all right? I see what you're doing. Okay, but the Karma ban is really interesting because we are used to red side Karma at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to talk on that too. Usually you see the Aphelios being the first pick. We talk about the Eshrol or Graves too. But Karma is usually the red side pick. And oh my god, they are literally just target banning Monk here, completely disrespecting the rest of the MNM members.
I mean,
Maybe they're just that confident in Sebex getting the advantage on Monk in lane. And, you know, like Veteran said, Sebex likes to go for skirmishing mid laners. Maybe he just thinks he can find the advantage that way. Instant Callista lock-in has been banned a lot in the NLC so far. That is the first lock-in here, trouble for Munster Rugby Gaming.
That's an easy insta-lock right there. You can pair her with so many different champions. You can have the set right next to her, the Thresh, the Nautilus, and you know you're going into an Aphelios lane, so you are going to be able to perma push it, at least in the early game, which then frees your jungler. We know Maxwell likes to play the Graves Nidalee type of champion. The Graves has been picked away by aesthetic, but the Nidalee is still open, which is something that I'm thinking Maxwell might tend to go for. And then having at least one lane that you know you're going to be pushing and having prior in is really great start.
I do like this Graves though in the beginning because he is by far one of the best junglers in this meta as of right now. And since you are red side, I know that Monk can get target banned a lot, but theoretically you do have that last pick too. And we did talk about this being a 2v2 skirmish site here. So I feel like with Graves secured for MNM here, they still have a strong early game. Question is how he's going to flourish when the draft finishes.
I mean, they've given up any priority on having either Ezreal Yuumi or having Aphelios Lulu, which would be the strongest picks that you can do in the bottom lane right now. Meanwhile, you know you're going up against a Callista, who is 100% going to be okay. So Kindred's actually a maximum staple. But on the Callista point, like they are basically signaling that they are planning to win lane from level 1 to 6. It's almost impossible to take on her unless you have specific configurations of Aphelios. For example, with Tahm Kench, that's one of the only things that can withstand the Callista level 1. They're saying we want to win this game early on. We absolutely do, like Goldberg said, put all of our trust in Unforgiven.
And then you also have Hiva. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Excandrel.
No, I was going to make a meme point, mate. Don't worry about it. I was about to say, it looks like it's a full Shadow Isles team from
It does look like it. What I really
Kindred
like it is the fact that you take the Kindred away. And what I'd like from MNM to reply with, now I'm not sure if Monk has been practicing it or it is in his books to play the Galio. Because once the Kindred ultimate goes down, that means that the Kindred is extremely low or one of the members low on HP. Throwing the Galio ultimate right on top will either force you to exit the ultimate and being in danger of dying, or withstand that knock-up and then also being in danger of dying. So I'm having my eyes peeled onto Monk, seeing if he can play that Galio mid.
And I have another pick because this set can be flexed into the mid lane. Now, Veteran, you know Monk on a more personal level than others. Is he a set mid laner?
He's an anything mid laner in his head, so I wouldn't put anything past him. One thing that I would actually like to praise Munster Rugby for, though, is the perfect synergy that their picks have with their opening bans. They haven't just targeted Monk, but they removed Twisted Fate when they're going for Callista first rotation. An early rotation Twisted Fate would be an absolutely strong response to it. They removed both Azir and Tristana displacements, but when they were intending to go for Kindred into a Graves rotation. They've actually performed this setup really, really well, and they pigeonholed MNM, though I don't think MNM should have necessarily gone for the set when they did, but they pigeonholed MNM's draft very, very thoroughly. They've banned both Aphelios and Ezreal now. Ziggs could very easily be a bot laner. I actually think that is actually a very undervalued pick right now. Ziggs bot lane, especially the priority that we see on bot, and with his ability to contest clear and his ability to delete turrets, is a very strong tempo pick right now, especially for the way that the meta is forming up. And this opens up a bit more maybe for Monk to go something AD, though you'd probably prefer him to go something AP here, given that you already have double AD on top, but it's not out of the question.
Nothing is set in stone either for the MNM roster. You can still throw the set towards the top side, towards the mid lane. The same can be set for 6, can be mid lane, can be bot side. And now they're actually blind picking a Zoe. We saw this yesterday with some skepticism from you, veteran. What do you think about this Zoe pick now?
I think it's still off theme here. Like, I prefer Zoe when you have a stronger jungler, early jungler, and mixed damage. You do at least have that. Zoe Kindred was a very, very strong combo back in the day, but the rest of the champions there are somewhat off theme. Maybe you can view this though more as like a pick-based composition, and then the Mordekaiser comes out and then it kind of loses identity again. Though these are all very, very strong individual picks, right? I'm seeing a lot of lane dominance here. I'm seeing them expecting a lot from the power picks that they have gotten on an individual level that they can snowball with. I mean, it's a Polish mid laner. They love their Zoes anyway, and they are always very, very strong. Yeah, they really do. I was
about to mention that. You know, you look at some of the Polish mid laners we've had at the highest level of competition in Europe, and they all love Zoe. It is going to be a Corki, which I'm assuming is going to be going over to Monk, something that I guess, given his history as an AD carry player, he will be very comfortable playing. And yeah, these are the two teams. We have a few seconds before we jump over to our casters. What are we making of these compositions? Very briefly, Trouble, what do you think these two compositions are going to do? Who are you giving the edge to between MNM and Munster?
Honestly, come on. You have to give the edge to the team with the more broken champions. You get Callista Thresh bot lane and a Zoe in the mid lane. Come on, this is Prio City right here. Even though I do like the response with the Nautilus countering the Thresh in lane and the Ziggs, which has a big amount of wave clear, he's gonna start getting mana hungry at some point, especially in the early stages of the game. So the Kindred will be able to move around that bot side of the map. And of course, Zoe, illegal list, extreme amount of damage, only Prio in the mid lane. I have nothing else to say about this champion.
Okay, well, I'm going to hand over to Orcs, who I'm sure with Hip Brain will break down a bit further as he head into game. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Excandrel. Hello and welcome back to day number 2 of the NLC. My name is Jake Hitbrain Matthews and I'm joined by Dan Orcs Harrison. Orcs, Excandrel's pretty stellar color point of almost a full Shadow Isles comp is somewhat close there, 4 out of 5. But let's take a deeper dive out of the lore here and actually look at the team comps. What are you liking about both of these teams?
Well, I think it's an interesting sort of strategy coming out here from Munster because they're going to have a lot of that early pressure that they want to play around, and they're going to be taking the agency in the early stages of the game. And to transition that into the mid game, they actually have insane objective control. You have Callista, who can build up the Ren stacks. You have Kindred, who's often difficult to smite against because he can throw his ultimate down. You smite the objective and it doesn't die. And then Mordekaiser is great at ulting enemy junglers and removing them from the situation. On top of that, you have the Zoe, who's great at setting up for objectives and looking for picks. So I feel like for me, Munster's identity is you want to find those early advantages around the laning strength and the priority you've been given, and then transition that into objective control, be picking up those heralds, leading into those later dragons and the barons. And that's really where I feel Munster need to shine, because if this game does go into the later stages, MNM start to really come online.
Well, we take to the Summoners Rift for our first game of the day. It's Munster Rugby taking on MNM Gaming.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Exciting one here. Munster obviously are a team who kind of have a lot to prove for themselves. The only Irish representation in the NLC. MNM, a long-time standing team within the UK scene. They've yet to ever take the UKLC title. That has now passed them as we moved into the NLC. I have to see what they've got here. If they can take down Munster, it's a massive statement going into today's games.
Absolutely is, and it was talked a bit about on the analyst desk how MNM are expected to take some more time sort of transition with Monk's adjustment to the mid lane, and all the changes coming through. Whereas with Munster, we have had interviews yesterday where a lot of the teams, we saw the likes of XL, Fnatic, and Riddle all saying how Munster are up there and sort of solidifying that top 4 in the league of people's expectations of who's going to be the strongest roster. So by all means, they are the favorites here. We should be looking to see them win it. Whether that is what comes through will be a different story. If MNM can take this one, as you said, it would be absolutely massive for them.
Well, for now, everybody starts up pretty standard. Jungle is starting on the opposite side of the map for each other, so we see what that potentially means. It means Maxwell will be on that top side, so if he wants to try and help Shikari out in this top lane, there is the potential for them to go for those plays, while Aesthetic obviously has the ability to move bot side, although is a Ziggs Nautilus. What do you feel about this lane? Obviously, we've had Ziggs quite a lot. You're a bit of a Ziggs connoisseur, I know this. And one of the things you've always talked to us is about how Luden's Echo is a really big spike for the wave clear on Ziggs. So
yeah.
Early, how does this lane go?
It's pretty tricky. If you get caught by a hook, then obviously you can be in a rough situation unless you're quick with the satchel. The satchel being critical because if you knock the Callisto away, it takes it too much time to get in range to really start stacking up those run stacks. So you can just disengage and play the lane pretty non-interactively. And then you have the wave clear sort of to mitigate the pressure coming out, which is an important thing.
He just used the face breaker here. Maxwell has red buster. He can slow him down. Kakan's going to take a lot of damage. Has to use the haymaker, gets a big chunk out onto Maxwell. I think they can be pretty happy with that, burning the flash from Kakan early.
Yeah, they'll take that. Getting the flash of Kakan obviously puts pressure on him. It's an early gank that doesn't really take away from the Kindred too much. You could have done a camp in that time, sure, but he's happy to put that pressure down. And if you look there again, you may be able to find that kill, but ultimately it just helps Shikari out in that matchup. So looking again mid, but I think this is just to help Sevex get the shove in. You just have the smite. I don't think you want to take a 2v2 in that situation up against the Zoe with that extra sort of smite available in the fight.
Yeah, it does make life a little bit harder. Actually does land the Drowsy. But Aesthetic comes in with a good blind. The Chilling Smite goes down from Sevex. And now Maxlaw, he's just stepping forward, making sure they can try and clear this wave. Monk gets chunked, loses a lot of his mana, but Aesthetic still has pretty much a full health bar at this point. So feels like Munster just going to have to chill a little bit, slow down.
Yeah, and you can see now Maxlaw going to move towards his bot side, but they do have priority. They're actually looking for something here.
Oh, they find the hook there from Heaver. The flash comes out from Barker, and he just flashes into the lantern. Barker might fall. First blood to Unforgiven.
And ultimately, just a mistake there from Barco. The critical thing I was talking about is you want to use that satchel to disengage the Callista. He tries to use it on the Thresh, but the death sentence had already come out. And as soon as that lands, you're essentially just done. You have two choices. Satchel yourself away or satchel the Callista away. If you satchel the Thresh that late, you're just going to die anyway. And he will TP back in, so he doesn't lose too much. But he's now down that flash, and given the Callista kill early, never a good situation to put yourself in. And now they're looking for more.
Punish. Flashless, remember, on Barcode. Heaver looks for the hook. The flash comes out from Clearer. And they're able to get out.
Yeah, the timing of the Nautilus hook, it does sort of persist through the flay, so unfortunately we weren't able to find that. But a good hook from Heaver does mean they get the flash away from Kalhira, so ultimately still a positive. And this puts so much pressure, and if you see the waves still crashing.
Coming back. So as expected, this will be a 3 versus 3 here. A lot of damage on Unforgiven already, but the teleport's getting used. That's a hook from downtown onto Heaver. Aesthetic has so many spears inside him, and Unforgiven is looking for it. Sevex mops up the kill, lands the bubble, has the red smite to boot. That's a double kill onto Sevex.
Oh, this is so good for Munster in this situation. The teleport from Sevex coming in clutch. It looks like Monk actually just TP'd back to lane, so pretty selfish in that situation. And the end result is, you know, you miss most of a wave there. Actually, Sevex is going to get him back in time, so barely missing anything there for Sevex. He did actually get back to base before that, so he was able to pick up items. He gets 2 kills with his pocket, so he's looking great. And they end up denying even more farm away from Barcode. He's now down a level on Unforgiven, 17 chess away, and the wave is going to bounce once again. So the reason that whole turn of play happened was because Barcode and Calera were trying to push the wave into the tower, and they couldn't. Aesthetic shows up to try and help them out, and it just breaks out into a fight. But now, in the bot lane, the wave is actually going to shove out once again because it crashed into the tower. And it's going to be very difficult for Barcode to really contest the CS in this situation. And we're likely going to see the same scenario arise in a short amount of time. And you can see Maxlaw is on the top side of the map, but he's pathing downwards right now. And just one more thing is looking towards this top lane matchup. Shikari really doing a number right now onto Kakan, the 1v1.
Shikari kind of, you know, back when we used to be on Fnatic, we always kind of talked about him as this kind of brick wall top laner. He's good at absorbing pressure. He's good at just playing weak side. He's currently playing weak side. Everyone's playing towards bot lane, but he doesn't care. He's quite happy. He got that one gank from Maxwell at the beginning, forced the flash out of Kakan, and since then, it's just set him up to play with complete confidence in the lane. As Sebex actually does jump onto Monk, misses out on the bubble. He's going to land that paddle star, got the ignite as well, and Sebex is going to get a third kill for himself. Monk just going to get smacked around here by the Zoe.
Yeah, not really too many options there. Maybe you could have flashed the paddle star and that would have let you survive, but Monk just ends up going down, and they're quickly going to transition this into a dragon. They already had it started up. Hiva was freed up on the lane, and Barcode and Clear with no flashes couldn't really step up to do anything in response. So good play from Munster there to capitalize in this situation. If we actually look towards bot lane, as we said, we saw that big wave get built up. It's been frozen here for a little bit of time, and Barcode had no choice but just to reset on this. He's been denied pretty heavily in this situation, and the end result is they're actually going to swap towards the top lane, but it's still 40 seconds till that Herald spawns. Munster can actually build up a big wave in this situation. They can crash it, dive Kakan, potentially look to take some plates. They have a lot of options here, especially with Maxlaw having his level 6 available. I think based on the pace of how fast they're shoving, actually, no, pings are coming out. I think they are looking to potentially dive Kakan here, or at least get the plates in the situation.
Yeah, Maxwell does have that ultimate available, so can kind of deal with
Critically,
that.
the Callista now has Herald as well, so if Hiva takes aggro, then the ult can be used by Unforgiven to drop it. Also, the stopwatch is available for Hiva, so no way, even with how good Set is in countering dives, no way you can step up in this situation. And you do see MNM are going for this Herald on the other side of the map, but it's only just spawned, they've only just started it, and already look how damaged this tower is. I mean, if you're getting the Herald, the goal is to sort of be ahead of the other team in tower taking, but because they didn't have the setup, they didn't have the priority bot lane because there was a huge stack wave from Munster, the end result is they're going to be able to get ahead of you in terms of tempo and get this tower first.
I do remember this is the Ziggs with the satchel, so you do have a little bit of a speedier one, and all of those plates bonuses like have now started to stack up for Munster, so they might have to wait for those to time out a little bit more. So you saw how little that Demolish stack actually did to that fourth and final play. Now, it actually looks like MNM, they might just be brute forcing mid lane here. Shikari's making his way over, and it looks like for now they're actually going to call it off with Maxlaw waiting around. They decide not to commit. Sebex looks for a paddle star. He's not going to find it though.
I think the decision might have been top lane's too difficult to go for because Mordecai is even better than Set and dies because you just ult one person. And so they decided to go for mid, which is a high value tower open to the map, but you don't really have a wave to work with. And Munster are quick to get a read on that and then respond. They stop that from happening. The Herald is still in pocket for MNM, but this bot lane tower is about to go down. So ultimately, really successfully. Actually, I've been enough to save it there with the ultimate from the Ziggs, although with Demolish.
Oh, Demolish, it's done.
Yeah. So there we go. Munster didn't need to swap for the Herald. It was MNM who forced that one because they were in a comfortable position bot lane. And as much as they get that objective, they've lost the first tower and all of those plates. And the goal is split between Unforgiven and Hiva, but ultimately this is going to be a very powerful Callista through this mid game. And you can see the goal difference, 1,500 up between these two AD carries, 1,200 between the mid laners. Already, that's a massive advantage.
It is indeed. And normally when we see this Graves, it likes to be kind of invading a lot, skirmishing a lot, but Aesthetic did steal away the blue buff. But that is pretty much it at the moment. So hasn't really been able to be that kind of counter jungling monster that we know Graves is. But for now, Maxwell making his way towards the bot lane. I'm curious to see how many stacks he's got on his passive. He's got those 3 kills, so I don't know how many of those he went in for, but it looks like Kiva just going to go for the flash onto Barcode, catches him with the hook. The redemption is coming down. Clear dodges away on the claw, but Kakan is going to get caught out by Unforgiven. The showstopper gets used. Not really any places for him to go. He's inside the Death Realm, and Shikari will just bop him. Unforgiven picks the kill up just as the Death Realm fades, and Munster just having a really, really clean start to this game.
Yeah, great coordination there. As soon as Hiva looks for the initiation, Shikari starts channeling the teleport to get down there. But the big question for me is not sort of Munster making that play. That was absolutely the correct call for them. But what were MNM doing in that situation? I mean, if you look at Barcode and Clear's positioning there, they were super overextended. They had no tower to be safe behind. And it's like they just expected Munster to let them stand there freely. It was really weird for me overall and almost disrespectful. Munster unsurprisingly just punished that one. And now we're looking at a Zoe who's gone. She's gone with the Luden's Echo already picked up at this point. You've got the Blade Rune King complete on the Calista. And the disparity right now is huge.
Oh, bubble from Sebex lands, and he actually might just be able to get the damage off there. Minions come in to save the day, but Maxwell looks to chase. The hook comes out as a clearer, and he's underneath the tower. He's already dead. They look to go for the Rift Arrow play top lane, and they get punished by Munster. They're just going to look to take down yet another tower. Good ultimate will come through from Barcode, though, to clear the wave. Sebex will make sure that plate falls. And Shikari went mid lane, so while Monk tried to just stay away and get some plates and some gold for himself, Shikari's there to make sure he can't get too much. And now, Monk is actually getting collapsed on from this top side. Has to be a little careful. Does have that Valkyrie, going to use it, but gets slowed down for the moment. Already takes a lot of damage. They get the hook onto one. The Drowsy's going to connect. This is just not clear as day. Shikari finds his second kill, and it's the third death for the Nautilus.
Munster just playing this really smartly. They go for the play in the top side to mitigate the advantages of MNM. They get a couple of plates, and yes, the Thresher is shut down by the ultimate from Ziggs, but you saw Shikari rotate mid to try and deny as much as possible from MNM. Monk wasn't able to do anything with the wave, and then they actually rotate mid and they're able to punish on top of that. They're now going to be taking that dragon, and it just seems Munster know exactly where they need to be on the map. All 5 members working really well in unison, and MNM seem a little bit scattered at the moment. I think actually the Herald timed out.
Yeah, they didn't even get a chance to use it. Monk will get some plates up in the top lane, looks to crash this. Shikari once again, the Fawn in his side, doesn't give him too much free space.
I mean,
with Inferno and Mountain picked up for the side of Munster, we're now looking at an Ocean Soul, which if Munster can get, it's going to get even harder for MNM to cut these members through, considering how far behind they already are as it is. It's 5k gold difference between these two teams. Sebex 304 on the Zoe. Unforgiven's 304 on the Callista. The Luden's Echo and the Magi Soul Stealer onto Sebex. He's just so far ahead of Monk, who only has his Manamune and a Sheen finished up for himself.
And I just want to sort of talk about the fact that the Herald did get wasted, because obviously best Herald usage you can hope for is getting multiple charges out of it. And then below that, there's getting like a whole tower with plates on the first Herald. And I'm going to hold my thought here.
Oh, yeah, well, Sebex on a rampage.
I'll continue it. And then obviously like taking a whole tower with it is great. Bare minimum though, if you're getting a Herald, you should be able to throw it down, get 2 plates. If it's the first Herald of the game, you get those 2 plates, you get that gold. It's not great, but it's something. The fact that MNM didn't even get that, and you got to think of what it cost them, because they essentially gave a massive push over to the side of Munster. They lost a massive wave as well, so it was a huge sort of gold investment in favor of Munster for MNM to get this Herald, and then they don't even use it. And that is so rough to see when this team's already struggling that they don't even get any value at the Herald. Not even just like a bit of damage on a tower. No value. And I think it's just showing MNM are not having a good game. 5,000 down. Next Herald is spawning up and they're in position to deal with it. It does look like MNM might be leaning towards bot side to punish Shikari. This tower is quite low, so Shikari isn't even willing to show up. They will just concede this tower in this situation, and then he can catch the wave after. Unforgiven playing pretty aggressive here.
Yeah, Clearer looks for the ultimate, gets played back. The bomb does land, but it doesn't do too much damage. Clearer has to go golden. Aesthetic looking to zone for the moment, but Maxwell looks to chase. Clearer will fall once again as Unforgiven. He finds himself on a rampage. Shikari on a killing spree. And Munster are just running away with this game. 3 members of MNM down. It's 13-1 at 15 minutes. The Rift Herald's been summoned, and this will be the last tier 1 to fall. Can MNM actually defend further is the question, because Munster have actually found out Aesthetic. He's been forced to flash. The hook goes wide. Collateral damage is going to get used, and this will be the second charge out from the Rift Herald onto this tower. It's 2 free towers over to the side of Munster.
Now, that's good value on a Rift Herald, I'll say that much. Definitely better than not having it used. And I think for me in that fight, it was just MNM didn't even look like super committed. At the start of the fight, Clara just throws the ult down, but the team doesn't really seem to follow up. And that is the difference. It feels like Munster are playing as a unit. As soon as the fight breaks out, you see Sebex teleporting in. They instantly have the man advantage, and they're just able to crush the fight because they're all landing their abilities. The mechanics are there. The coordination is there. They're looking really good. And in comparison for MNM, Kalera walked up and it felt like even he wasn't sure what he was going for. He put the ult down, the death charge onto Unforgiven. And then he was it seemed like he was humming and hawing whether he actually wants to commit to this play. And then he tries to back away, but it's just way too late at that point. It feels like MNM are just looking disjointed.
You can see the gold on your screen right now as well. Between the AD carries. I mean, obviously one's a Ziggs, but he's still an AD carry. 3,000 gold. Separating Barcode and Unforgiven. Sebex, 7,500 gold in his pocket, just to the 5,400 on Monk.
And it's just Munster have done a great job of funneling their carries. Unforgiven significantly ahead. Sebex as well. Even Shikari, although he's seen an engage come in again.
Yeah, they're looking to catch out onto Clara here. Gets the two-man flay back. This may just be the end of Heaver, but the heal comes out into the Lamb's Respite to save his life. Aesthetic dies on the bottom side of the map, and Khan goes down before the Haymaker can pop. Munster find another two.
And it's just Munster being able to force very low risk for them because they have that Lamb's Respite available. On top of that, Callista ult is typically there. Wasn't in that situation, but they can just throw Heaver forward. Say, Heaver, you go look for an engage. If they try and turn around on the Heaver, they have two ways of saving him. And now, once again...
Yeah, Monk, he's going to get played back. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. Maxwell gets lanterned out as well. And that is just another kill in the pocket of Munster. Unforgiven's able to dodge away on the hook.
And it's literally just a Heaver show right now. Heaver is able to go forward. He has two safety nets for himself, very low risk, and he's consistently finding this CC. The team are there to follow him up, and should MNM invest more members, they've had the TPs to back it up. Munster just looking completely dominant in this game, and all I can say is at least MNM have a kill and a tower, because I'm not sure they'll get much else in this one. Third Dragon gonna go down. Soul Point, nearly 10,000 gold ahead at 18 minutes. And we had some one-sided games yesterday. I think this blows them out of the park.
Yeah, this is a very one-sided, very straightforward affair here. We're going to see the kill onto Monk. Hooked into the box, had nowhere to go. Almost got turned around by Barcode, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, ult wasn't available there, and the Lantern coming in clutch. Just good coordination, and I do want to highlight something in Sebex's inventory. It seems we have a 22-stack Medjais, which is ramping up pretty effectively right now.
God.
Nearly got the Rabadons as well, so that Zoe is just going to hit, and it's talked about on the desk. Polish mid laners loving their Zoe, and Sebex is no stranger to the champion. Has been doing a massive amount of work in this game.
Yeah, Maxwell now. Actually may get himself caught out. Does have the Lamb's Respite if he needs it. The Lantern means he is safe. In goes the Mega Inferno Bomb, and Maxwell, the fancy dancing, will finally be taken down. That's the showstopper by Kikana off the Heaver. Sebex has a flash, so he can play a little bit more aggressive here for the moment. Lands himself the Drowsy, but not going to fully commit for the moment. Sebex thinks the better of it, and they finally find themselves a pick onto that jungler, getting himself the big shutdown. Unforgiven now needs to run like the wind as MNM are hunting him down.
A bit overzealous there. We talked about the safety nets, the Lamb's Respite, the Fate's Call from the Callista, and the teleports. All of them were unavailable there. And they just end up setting up for a pick onto Munster. So it's nice to see MNM having some life. They are still trying to take this game. They do find a pick and a shutdown. Ultimately still massively far behind. It is something, though. They just need that another, say, 10, 15 times. And then we're talking.
I do have a little update. Maxwell actually only has 6 stacks currently on the Kindred. Kind of expecting him to have more considering how far ahead hit they are, but he's at least hit over that sweet spot of 4, which gives you the extended range.
And 1 more to 7 is pretty significant. So if he can get his hands on that, that'd be nice. And we can see goal difference in this game accelerating massively from those early stages. And it has sort of started to stagnate about this 9,000 level. Actually, a little bit below that now, but ultimately still a massive lead. And Unforgiven going aggressive here.
Yeah, the package gets used defensively, and that may just mean Clear is going to get caught out. Heaver jumps in forward. They're looking for the kill. Sebex is dominating as he picks up yet another kill. Aesthetic looks for a little something onto Heaver, but Heaver's just going to be able to walk away from that one. Does Maxwell actually make it caught out by Aesthetic? Inside the jungle. Got the camp though, so that's another stack in his pocket.
Now at the 7, which is another spike for him, and it looks like they are moving towards this dragon. Remember what we talked about before the game? The objective control in this lineup is insane. They have the Lamb's Respite, the Callista Rend, and on top of that, they have the Death Realm from the Mordekaiser. There's no way you should be able to steal this. Aesthetic might try. Not realistic.
He's just going to help him out here. Sebex going to zone away. Collateral damage was pretty well timed, but it wasn't enough to steal it when you've got the Smite and the Rend available to Munster. And now Monk, no package available, so not quite a long distance he can put between them. Kakan gets caught inside the Death Realm, and he'll get taken down. That's the hook by Heaver. They should have used the ulti onto Maxwell, but the Lamb's Respite's going to buy a bit of space here. Munster, their health bars are a little low after that Baron, but they are just going to step away. Not going to fall over to MNM here.
Actually gone a little bit overzealous in that situation. You know, they were low in HP after the Baron. Should have just gone for the reset, but a little bit greedy. Doesn't get punished too much. They only lose to Shikari, but that is another shutdown. However, critically, the big 1,000 gold bounties on Sebex and Unforgiven are still maintained.
Sebex has Death Cap, Ludens, and a fully stacked Medjais at this point.
And we're now seeing the tank item completed for Unforgiven with the Death Stance, so definitely big spikes coming out. So we have the replay, and again, they just overcommit in this situation. Shikari does actually save the team because he puts Kakan into the Death Realm. If he wasn't in the Death Realm, he might have actually been able to get a big combo there. And the Lamb's Respite does give them some space, but it could have gone a little bit pear-shaped for Munster if they did go a bit more aggressive, or maybe if MNM were able to punish more. Now though, Monk, lucky there.
Trying to contest. He's going to get chunked already, but we'll send him packing. Although Sebex is sniffing. Put the spell thief on, so he's got that extra movement speed. He's going to land the bubble. Just about missed, actually.
They don't get a kill here, but they are pushing so far into this jungle. It's making it very difficult for MNM to contest. This dragon coming up in 20 seconds. It will be that Ocean Soul. Looking for Unforgiven, though.
Unforgiven with so much damage to Monk, though. 1 versus 2. Power of the Death Dances. Sebex is just killing Kakan off on the top side.
Yeah, that's enough AP to do that, and ultimately Kakan not really going any tanky items in this situation. Blading King into Triforce, a very expensive damage-heavy build. Not really sure you can afford those, and Heaver looking for Monk now.
Yeah, he's looking for that hook. Not going to find it. Tried to predict him. Although that will be the tower falling down. The Ocean Soul is up.
Munster aren't even bothered, though.
Munster, they've got the Baron. They'd rather just push these towers and secure the base objectives before peeling back. If they can find a good pick, that would be all they need to close this game out. As Lyra looks for the hook, misses it out. Open inhibitor in the bot lane. Top lane's getting shoved by Shikari. And MNM just being pulled around on all fronts of the game right now. Clear's going to throw the ultimate out onto Unforgiven. The teleport's coming in. The Mega Inferno Bomb just tickles Unforgiven, to be clear at this point. Clear, he's going to fall down as Kakan is on that flank.
Bit too late now, though.
Yeah, double kill picked up for for Shikari. And this actually could just be the game for Munster. They are taking down the mid lane inhibitor, getting the last of these minions at their back. MNM, they do have some wave clear. As the Baron buff has now fallen off, sorry. So it looks like maybe for now Munster just want to step away and go back to the dragon and get their hands on that soul.
Why risk it? Why risk it and overpush? You're sitting on a lot of gold right now. You've picked up a ton of objectives. You have the Ocean Soul to take, and then you have super minions pushing into the base. You can very easily coordinate that once more. So just no reason to take the risk in this situation. The game is in your hands. 14,000 gold nearly is the difference. And with this soul as well, it's just going to get worse. MNM, we said there were scaling elements. The Ziggs and the Corki in particular really strong in the later stages. They're just so far away from that. It just doesn't even matter.
And that is it. Ocean Soul over to the side of Munster. Let's have a little look at the replay where they're able to crack open the base.
And I'm just going to give so much praise to Heaver in this game. He's been great on the Thresh, really consistent with landing a CC. And on top of that, whenever Unforgiven feels threatened, Heaver is always there to body block, always there to be in the way. And the strength of that on the Thresh is that you have the Fate's Call to keep you safe. And it's just these two are working well, so well in tandem with each other. I think that's just the story of the whole game. All of Munster really working well in sync with each other, and just a good coordinated effort to facilitate the whole team.
Yeah, now they're going to swift their attention over towards this top side of the map. It's the only standing inhibitor. Also, Baron up in 1 minute 30. They want to try and get some kind of control around here. As Maxlaw is going to contest out on this control ward. Will win the fight. Eva dodges well. A lot of skill shots there. Now, what do MNM need to do? What is their game plan? I know it feels pretty doomed, but let's try and figure out some kind of game plan for them here.
You need someone to overstep so they're not in range of the Lamb's Respite. Maybe if you can get Kakan to ult, say, Unforgiven in, you instantly burst him. It's a big maybe. Maybe a good package from Monk just burns down the team. I think you have to go for the fight now, though. If you lose this inhibitor, it's not looking good. And they are just going to pass it away. And just essentially use the package just to ward them up. You've lost 3 inhibitors now. Super minions pushing in, and the Ocean Soul means Munster have so much sustain. You just need to pick someone off, and I feel like Munster will find that.
So much damage! Sebek getting the one shot off there.
Oh lord, that was a lot of damage. So you get with full stack Medjais taking down the top lane. Kakan, no real magic resistance to talk about. Only really gone for that damage, and now they're just going to push the waves in together.
They know what's going on. They're spamming the game over emote. The waves are being walked in. And Munster.
Actually, I will say Munster aren't really sinking these waves well. Maxlaw brought it in a little bit early, and there's a lot of wave clear on MNM. Not sure it's going to be enough, but going to give it an effort.
Now that's going to be the end of both of these turrets. The Nexus will be left. Clara looks for a desperation ultimate. Kakan is back up. It's do or die here for MNM. They've already lost a member. The face breaker isn't going to be enough. And Munster, Fate chasing them onto the fountain as Shikari finds Kakan. The Nexus will fall. 27 minutes on the clock, and Munster Rugby are looking dominant in the NLC.
It was the expectation. The desk unanimously voted in favor of Munster, but in that fashion, it was severe. And we had a conversation about what we can expect from MNM. We thought over the course of the split, they would look to ramp up as they get more coordinated, but you could see the difference there. Munster looked like they'd been a team, been together for a significant amount of time. It's clear they've been getting the practice in. The coordination was crisp. They all knew what they needed to do, where they wanted to be. And anytime MNM tried to counteract that, you're finding TPs instantly sync to come in. The members all know what they needed to do. And I think just a great team with great players. I've got to, in particular, once again, just highlight Heaver really looking solid on that Thresh.
Yeah, I feel like there's not really too much to go into on that game. It was just a very one-sided, very clean game out by Munster. But I think what we'll do is we'll go to a break, and then we'll let our analysts properly break down that game and have a deep dive into that. So after the break, we'll be coming back with the analyst desk to break down that last game. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a second.
Every time you go, if you see it, come and get it. When you do, you won't regret it. No, you won't. So tell me that you gotta have it, say you need it like a habit. No, 'cause every time I see it, I'm like, work it, work it, work it, work it, yeah, work it, work it. Every time I see it, I'm like, work it, work it. summertime, sipping in a high, we caught a fever for two. Go together like neon in the night. I know I'm better with you. I know that you see me the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling, know that I'm all into you every time. You make me feel good. You make me feel good. Hearts running wild. You make me feel good. You make me feel good. Hearts running wild.
Welcome back to the NLC. Wow, I feel like we've only just left. That was a quick affair for Munster Rugby Gaming, definitely living up to expectations. And it really kind of harks back to the last time I saw Max Law in a UK scene where he was on Renegades, I believe. And their whole ethos was win lane, win game. It definitely felt that way, veteran, with the picks that we saw coming out here.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like from the opening Kalista pick, you could see the direction that this was going. And with the Kindred pick, you can kind of understand it as well, right? If this composition has a function, it's that they will have 3 priority lanes and Kindred will be able to pick up her marks for sure. But outside of the early game in that regard, it doesn't necessarily have an identity. So the game slowed down a little, but this game didn't slow down a little for the same reason that the Academy team's performances yesterday slowed down a little. There, their opponents were able to find pretty game-changing picks or able to punish them on poor resets or something like this. But here, I honestly think this is the single most dominant performance that we have seen of the split so far. It's an incredible debut for Monster Gaming. I think we did expect them to be able to outskill these guys 1v1, but they banked on it and it paid dividends.
And I would love to touch a little bit onto the draft as well, because Monk got hard focused on that. He had 3 of his main champions be taken completely off the board, and that doesn't necessarily diminish a lot of his very strong champs in his pool, but it also frees so many other champions that otherwise would have been banned in this position. So you had champions like Aphelios still in, Kalista still in, Seth still in, and Graves, Trundles, Nidalee. You had everything in there thrown into the mix, and then you have to pick your fighter. And I was really surprised to see that, yes, I know that Aesthetic loves to play the Graves, it's one of his go-to champions, but I would have potentially rather seen maybe the Thresh and the Set being taken away and force the Kalista to possibly go something towards a Nautilus, and then you can pick the Aphelios on the first rotation. Now, I give props to Munster because it felt like there was a confusion in this whole draft for the side of MNM.
At the same time too, right, it's not only about the draft. As Veteran touched on, they just got individually outclassed and Max Law was able to do whatever you want. But they were also setting the tempo every time. I think they got almost every neutral objective in that game. Every time MNM tried to make on the play on the map, they were just ahead of them. I saw one time they were trying to do a Herald play in top lane, trying to set up for this 6 satchel charge, but Munster Rugby Gaming already up there with 3 members, and I feel like that's just the case for this whole game. Every time MNM tried to do something that could get them back into this game, they were there to shut them down.
To be honest with you, mate, I'm going to level with you. I don't think there was many ways back into that game for MNM.
One last thing, Excounter.
They tried.
Zoe is so freaking disgusting, and I don't know what it is with Polish mid laners and Zoes and then popping off and everything, but so far I've seen 2 Zoes. I'm impressed.
Well, believe it or not, we actually have a Polish mid laner on standby ready to chat to. So I'm going to bring Sebex in here and have a little chat with him about his win. Sebex, congratulations for your first win. Monster Rugby Gaming definitely looking like the most dominant team that we've seen so far in terms of display. I'm gonna start with that question. Trouble set it up. What is it with Polish mid laners and Zoe? You guys are all just absolutely insane at Zoe. What is it? Just something that is it something that's drilled into you, just growing up in Poland as a mid laner?
Yeah, I agree that Poland has a lot of Zoe players. Like we have some other champions that like Polish people are known of. For example, like we have some Corki players as well, and yeah, like Polish mid laners are good on those.
I think Polish mid laners in general are just quite good. You guys seem to export a lot of incredibly good players. So I want to start off with a question that I think a lot of us were thinking about asking. Unforgiven, he's an AD carry that you guys really wanted on the team. We heard that you all really wanted Unforgiven to be on the team with you. And a lot of people watching may not know this guy compared to some of the other AD carries that we have in the NLC. What are the strengths of him compared to some of the AD carries in this tournament? And why did you guys so heavily choose him over other options?
I mean, I think he's like a really good fit to Hiva. They are both aggressive players, and yeah, like they play so aggressive on bot and they test limits. Like also Unforgiven is really mechanically gifted, and he plays so well and aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that they absolutely dumpstered 2v2 as well. Hiva, I mean, I don't think Hiva speaks for himself at this point. He's an incredible player, but he partnered so well with Unforgiven there. Obviously, we talked about how dominant this win was. A lot of people have put you in the top 3 with Fnatic and XL in the entire NLC. How do you expect to keep pace with Fnatic and XL? Do you think that those are teams that you can very easily beat and go toe-to-toe with? Or do you still think there is work to be done there?
I mean, there's definitely work to be done there. Like, it's not going to be easy to beat them. They are really good teams, and I'm looking forward to face them. We play Fnatic in 1 week, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that game is going to be insane, especially given the way that you just played right here. Sebex, thank you so much for coming on the show, mate, and really, really good performance. Obviously, you made Zoe look very easy as per usual, and we will see you soon.
Thank you as well.
So there you go, guys. Having a little chat to Sebex there. He sort of admits that. Yeah, I think he's quietly confident. I think he's not sort of being too cocky with the way that he's approaching his team there. But he obviously knows that there's going to be a big challenge when he faces up against Fnatic next week. And I guess that's a little floater question to throw out there. I'll start with you, veteran. Munster versus Fnatic. Like, what are the key points that we have to look at with that? Because that's a matchup that you're going to have to watch next week.
Yeah, but I mean, there is still one really big strength from Fnatic that we have to talk about every time we talk about them, and that is Dan. I mean, imagine Dan with 3 solidly winning lanes like this. We saw what Dan did yesterday without this kind of setup afforded to him, even with mid laner was struggling at points. And we saw what Maxwell did today. It was barely even 1 level up over Aesthetic. Aesthetic actually was able to maintain parity with him for most of the game. You have to think that maybe that would be an area that Fnatic Rising will look to lean back on, though Dan has typically been what Fnatic Rising have been back on when push comes to shove. So we'll need to see Maxwell step up for that. And I think everybody wants to see Maxwell versus Dan at this point, like the 2 big UK junglers, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm looking for the bot lane action, actually. So we're looking down at Unforgiving here, coming into this league, and he's been the big question mark. We've talked about it today in the interview too. How does he think he's going to fare against the academy teams? Honestly, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially with Hiva down there too. I mean, Bravado has been a bit shaky every now and then, and I want to see how Matty and Bravado deal with a full force, as we saw that Unforgiven and Hiva was today. And it's not only because they're only going to play this 2v2 style, because we know Hiva, we know his ability and how to influence the map, and that can be an issue too, because let's be honest, most of the majority of people have seen that topside can be an interesting action too, because they're necessarily not the star players of the roster, but they have something to prove too.
I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I think Hiva outclasses Bravado by a significant margin.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, that's not controversial.
No, I think Hiva. I think Hiva outclasses a lot of people by a significant margin. I think he's one of the better support players that we have in this roster. But look, guys, this has been an excellent opening game. Obviously, we have more to come after the break. Dusty versus Tricked. I know Veteran is very hyped for this matchup. We'll see you soon.